Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with a midweek update in the world of cannabis. So before we jump in, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. Of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and there's plenty of content to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you're ready. But we're going to start with some sales, as New Cannabis Venture reports that Michigan cannabis sales increased 53% to $161.4 million in September. With one less day in September than August, Michigan cannabis sales slipped sequentially 2.5% to $161.4 million, but they were up 52.5% from a year ago. Sales remain strong after their record month of July 21st. Almost seems like it's coming down a little bit to prepare for another big month of sales in the rest of the year. But the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency breaks down sales by medical and adult use, with medical sales falling 20.9% from a year ago to $36.5 million, down 9% sequentially, and adult use sales increasing 109% year over year to 124.9, down 0.5% sequentially. So you can see the trend of that on this graph here. The state breaks down the category, and you can see that information if you wanted to see all the breakdown from what was sold and how much of it was sold. But I think the big takeaway, in the larger and more rapidly growing adult use market, flower and trim sales represented 57% of the market, similar to July and August, but down from 58% in the prior 3 months and up from 56% in January and February. Plus, as supply continues to expand, flower pricing for adult use has seen a dramatic decline. In September, the average price of $3,497 per pound fell 7% from August and fell 46% from a year ago, which is ultimately good for us consumers. And as investors, I still think there's just enough volume, and the total addressable market is still set to expand, and there's just still enough room. So although price drops is not as good for us investors, it's ultimately just good for everyone involved, and especially the consumers that want to buy this cannabis. While Michigan generated $985 million in cannabis sales in 2020, I think this is the biggest takeaway from this article. And the program should continue to expand this year as supply becomes more available and as disruption expands. So far in 2021, year to date, from January to September, combined sales are up 90% to $1.31 billion. So that is impressive nonetheless. Just goes to show that the people of Michigan want their cannabis, and if you supply the demand properly, we see these strong sales. So just wanted to share this tweet from someone named Thomas Lee, who runs this account Fundstrat. Seems like he has a large enough audience though, 174.4K followers, and it's a tweet like this where Mitchell Osak, much respect Mitchell, thank you for sharing this information from New Cannabis Ventures. And then this man tweets, "This surprises me," which it should not surprise you if you've been following this industry whatsoever. However, if you are a big-time investor focusing on other industries, you might not be paying attention to cannabis whatsoever. So the fact that this is catching the eyes of some bigger investors is very positive, and hopefully this trend will continue, as there's more reason for it too, because the fundamentals are stellar, and we're just heading in that direction. So wanted to share that. Well, this one is from October 4th, so it's from a week back, but I figure it's still relevant, as BDSA data indicates cannabis sales weakened in western states in August. So we're going to go through this. Following 2 months of softening sales trend, most of the markets that cannabis data analytics firm BDSA covers experienced continued weakness during August. Tough comparisons from a year ago, when sales surged during the pandemic, resulted in relatively weak annual growth in most markets, with several even declining. But keep in mind, there was the stimulus handed out, which was free money that likely added for the such big increases last year. Weak sales of flower compared to a year ago was the underlying theme, and in this review we will look at the markets one by one, beginning with more mature Western markets and then concluding with newer Eastern markets. So BDSA for Western markets provides coverage of Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, and Oregon. In August, growth ranged from -7 in California to 26% in Arizona compared to a year ago. And so we'll just cover the top snippets. Arizona transitioned to adult use in late January, but this is the 5th month that BDSA has included adult use sales. Total cannabis sales grew 26% to $115.3 million, with adult use representing $55 million. Medical cannabis sales fell 34% from a year ago to $60.3 million. And although sales in Arizona have not managed to get back to their April record month, they're still very strong across the board, and it's worth worth noting that growth was strong across all categories, which means consumers are probably trying new products, but the highest growth by far was in pre-rolls, which gained 176%. So that's positive, as Arizona is accelerating their growth with that newly legalized adult use market. On to California, as sales fell 7.3% to $318.4 million, down 4.2% from July, as flower fell nearly 17% and concentrates fell 8%. However, pre-rolls picked up by 15% and ingestibles grew by 6%. So it seems like consumers are trying new things, getting more into the edibles game and the one-time pre-roll purchases. But as we can see, California did not manage to surpass their April 4th record month. However, the sales are still strong, and it gives us reason to believe that they might see a very strong sales month in the remainder of the year, just based on how they have pulled back over time. On to Colorado, the annual decline improved from 11% in July to 6.5% in August, as sales grew 1.6% sequentially to $206.2 million, as flower dropped 23% compared to a year ago, while ingestibles and concentrates expanded by more than 7% and pre-rolls gained 17%. So Colorado, for a state with just 5.7 million people, the fact that they're doing steadily over $200 million a month in sales is incredible. So we'd love to see that. On to Nevada, sales fell 3.7% to $80.8 million, down 0.8% from July. Flower fell almost 17%, while other categories showed gains. So that does, and the strongest category was ingestibles. So edibles are banging in the U.S. apparently, up 27.5% from a year ago. So sales did not manage to hit a record, but still very strong in Nevada. And again, once tourism opens up fully, people get vaccinated, and there's more international and domestic travel as people are just ready to do what they used to do again, that is going to help increase this growth over time as a very popular tourist destination. And on to Oregon, sales in this mature market dropped 4.3% compared to a year ago and 3.5% from July. Flower fell 13%, while concentrates dropped almost 2%, while pre-rolls and ingestibles both gained more than 8%. So keep in mind too, any MSOs that are heavy in the pre-roll and ingestible game, there seems to be a trend here where ingestibles are getting a lot more popular than they used to have been. But again, Oregon, one of the more mature markets, still seeing sales close to or steadily over 100 million. And for a population that isn't as large as some of the larger states, I still think that's very positive, especially for a mature market. So on to Eastern markets. In the newer markets, the annual rate of growth picked up in all 2 of the 3 markets for which BDSA provides data. Note that BDSA has begun providing data for Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania as of January. Florida sales decreased 0.6% sequentially to $150.6 million, while Pennsylvania fell 4% from its record month in July to $105.8 million. Michigan, which we previously detailed, saw overall sales fall from 3% from July to $165.6 million. And then the one that we just showed you from Michigan, that's August, so that is the latest up to date, but that was up 52% from a year ago. This is referring to their July sales. BDSA, which includes accessories, reported a slightly higher level of sales for August at $168.8 million. But on to the Eastern markets that are showing more growth as well. Illinois combined adult use and medical sales rose 2% in August, including accessories, to $156.1 million, up 63.5% compared to a year ago. Flower grew 41%, while other categories grew 49 to 66%. Love to see that. Adult sales, according to data from the state, increased 91% in August to $122 million year over year. On to Maryland, which is just medical, not adult use yet. While the annual growth improved from 12% to 13%, as sales were flat from July at $45.9 million, the market has slowed substantially over the past year. In August, flower grew 10%, while other categories gained 12 to 18%, or 12 to 28%. So that's still very strong, but Maryland, get with it. Legalize for adult use. You're going to be glad you did. And then lastly, Massachusetts, the 55% growth in August was down from 63% in July, as sales expanded 2% sequentially to $152.4 million. Flower grew 29%, while all other categories grew 52% to 136%. So I'm going to keep my eye on these other categories, mostly the pre-rolls and ingestibles. We know that flower does well, so the main takeaway for myself is that states that have recently legalized for adult use continue to see strong growth month over month, while Western mature markets still see steady, strong sales. So there's nothing to be worried about there, and more importantly is just the fact that if only 18 states have legalized for adult use, that means many more states still have to reform their laws, and that includes some of the states that are going to join this total addressable market soon: New York, New Jersey, Virginia maybe not soon, New Mexico hopefully by next year, but you get the point. There's a lot of population in those states, 8 million in New Jersey, 20 million in New York, and then just in time, Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, all these other states to follow. So just know that this doesn't end, it just continues to go. On to some MSO news, as Trulieve celebrates reopening of Longwood, Florida dispensaries. So this is now their 94th in the state of Florida, as they've announced the reopening of a dispensary in Longwood, Florida. This location is Trulieve's 94th and was formerly branded as Harvest House of Cannabis. So this just goes to show by October 11th, they started this process on the 1st of October, so their second store already open again. So they are working hard and no slowing down. There's no slowing down at Trulieve, at least, while the parent company announces effectiveness of Form 10 registration statement, which from my understanding, it just is them taking the proper steps to get ready to uplist eventually on the US when they are allowed. So the parent company has announced that it has amended registration statement on Form 10. The registration statement, originally filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission on August 9th, 2021, became effective on October 8th, 2021. And the CEO adds, with SAFE Banking Act heading to the Senate and national support for cannabis reform at an all-time high, we are working quickly to capitalize on the opportunity to uplist to a major U.S. exchange following further advancements at a federal level, said Troy Datcher, Chief Executive Officer of the parent company. Our successes in California have provided us with a strong foundation that we expect to leverage nationally as the industry grows. Uplisting our shares will provide seamless access across all trading platforms and applications, enabling a broader pool of investors to share in our success as we become the most impactful cannabis company in the world. Yeah, right. More importantly, though, it seems like he knows something we don't about safe banking. I mean, also, I just don't say yeah right to joke about them, but I mean, there's just a lot of companies ahead of you guys. Like, you guys have a lot of catching up to do with Parent Co. But nonetheless, this is great news as more MSOs are preparing to uplist as if, that opportunity was coming soon, while Verano announces that they plan to report their third quarter 2021 financial results on November 16th, 2021. So they'll come the following week after a number of the Tier 1 MSOs will be reporting. So that just adds to what we can anticipate and what we're looking forward to in November, as these numbers, no doubt, will be impressive and continue to show the strong growth and execution on the ground. On to this one from MJ Stock Trader, just presents Cresco Labs Investor Newsletter, October 11th, 2021. So I'm not going to read through this, but if you happen to be invested in Cresco or want to learn more about this company, you can check this out. Obviously, the link will be below, or you can pause to read. But more importantly, I wanted to share this one from Pedro Linares, who is a stock market aficionado and shares his thoughts as well in here. But he shared this note from Stifel. So thank you, Pedro, for sharing this. New Jersey medical licenses may be awarded Friday, but he adds names like Trulieve and Cresco as possible recipients. So that's not something I was considering before. I figured, look, you can't get in every state. So obviously just get in the ones that you think are high priority. But this would be good news, especially for anyone invested in Trulieve or Cresco that was not anticipating this. So I'm just going to read some of this. It's a little bit small, so you can grab the link below. But potential catalyst for Trulieve and Cresco Labs. Among our coverage, Trulieve and Cresco Labs have no licenses in New Jersey, with both management teams previously discussing the focus on return on invested capital when looking to enter the state. And with that said, in Stifel's view, both Trulieve and Cresco Labs could be among the 146 applications in the 2019 RFA process, with likely high scores given their proven track record in other states. If successful, we believe Trulieve and Cresco Labs could scale up operations in a similar timeframe versus acquisition while entering the state at a significantly lower initial cost. So that was a new development that I wanted to share. They do talk about a few others. Incumbents retain first mover advantage, another step towards the first rec sale. So if you did want to grab this, the link is obviously below, but I thought that was worth sharing because as a Cresco Labs and Trulieve shareholder, I did not anticipate them getting in New Jersey. I'm very happy with their footprints already, especially Cresco's in New York, but if they can also get into New Jersey, obviously I'm not going to complain. So wanted to share that though, as I thought that was some valuable insight from Stifel. On to this, as State Senator Mike Regan on Daybreak is happy to explain his change of heart on recreational cannabis. So he is a Republican senator in Pennsylvania, and so we're just going to play this as he answers some questions, about a 3-minute clip in total. So
what do you think that means for your fellow lawmakers when they see someone like you embrace this idea of legalizing marijuana?
Well, believe it or not, there was more of a reefer madness atmosphere in the House way back when we were doing medical marijuana. People just did not want to see it, and we were able to convince a lot of people. And I think my background had a part in that, quite frankly. But a couple things are incontrovertible. One is that a lot of people are using marijuana now. It's a billion-dollar industry, right? Cops are not arresting people for personal use amounts. Prosecutors are not prosecuting for personal use amounts. Our bordering states are starting to sell it, which means border bleed, which means our dollars would be going to fix the roads and bridges in New York and New Jersey. Does that make sense? And who wins here? The guys who cut people's heads off and hang people off bridges, the cartels, organized crime, gangs, they're the ones who are making all the money. It's a billion-dollar industry. I say let's take that $1 billion and put it to work in Pennsylvania.
of course.
What are the chances of this actually passing?
Well, I mean,
Do you have other Republicans who you think are going to see your change of stance on this and maybe follow suit?
well, let me just say this. It polls at about 62%, 65% in my district, which is a conservative Republican district. We're going to do some polling around the state for other members and show them, hey, look, you can do this. Your people agree with it. Overwhelmingly, people agree with this. And you get members behind closed doors who say, yeah, I agree with you, but they're concerned about what their constituents, how their constituents feel. We're going to show them that their constituents feel the same way, that we should do this. It's time for Pennsylvania to do this. We can't just stand here idly by and see our taxpayers go to other states, the taxpayers' dollars, I should say, go to other states. So we need to work on it. And I think I'm the guy to do the job.
If you had a vote in the Senate tomorrow, would it pass?
I think it would.
Wow.
I think it would.
We talked to Republican leadership last week about all this, and they were very tight-lipped. No comments all around. What are you hearing, though?
They want to. Look, our leaders in the Senate are good people. They're reasonable people. They want consensus. So it's my job to go around and build consensus among the members and get the word out. I mean, I think I really can present a comprehensive, cogent case for this, and I'm going to do that over the next coming months.
Okay, coming months, a couple hearings, and then in December is when you think you'll officially introduce it.
Yeah, so I'm the chairman of the Law and Justice Committee, so I will run it out of my committee at some point. But I think the hearings are important because it gives members something to hang their hat on, something to wrap their head around.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share that because I think that's going to be big news. If they announce that in December, Pennsylvania plans to legalize for adult use, that's just going to be positive and add to this momentum. So wanted to share that. While Republican Ohio lawmakers announced cannabis legalization bill, reflecting recent bipartisan shift on the issue. So this is also very positive. On Tuesday, Ohio Rep. Jamie Callender held a press conference to unveil his new proposal, which would allow adults 21 and older to purchase and possess cannabis. The bill, whose chief co-sponsor is another Republican lawmaker, Rep. Ron Ferguson, would provide regulations for the licensing of cannabis growers, distributors, and retailers. And I just want to highlight Pennsylvania and Ohio are two states that have been talking about this for a long time. And the fact that we're actually seeing this come from Senate Republicans and they're pushing this effort. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they're Senate Republicans, but the fact that Republicans in these states are pushing this effort, that is just showing that people are picking up on the common sense and just the fact that there are so many good reasons to legalize cannabis, and it brings about a lot of solutions. It does not cause any more problems. And so the last thing I wanted to highlight from here, Callender and Ferguson are circulating a co-sponsorship memo to build support for the forthcoming legislation and are aiming to formally file the bill within the next 6 weeks or so. So that's probably before end of November. This time, the time is right to do this, and this is the right vehicle to do that, Callender said. This is the responsible way to legalize cannabis. So at least for Ohio, this looks like we're going to see something in the next 6 weeks, so possibly by December as well. So if we have Pennsylvania and Ohio, that would just be extra icing on the cake, considering all the momentum we've built so far. And what's funny is just the fact that Ohio Police Department, despite that, they're not going to like that the Ohio Republicans plan to legalize cannabis, or at least file a bill to do that, because Ohio Police Department deletes post warning of downhill tumble if voters approve cannabis decriminalization. And this is just an example of ignorance that remains in power, but sadly, thankfully, we're getting past that. In a press release from MacArthur Police Chief Thomas Heaton, a moron, which was shared on Facebook on Thursday, only to be taken down the following day, he explained that the proposal would reduce penalties for low-level cannabis possession to a $0 fine. The MacArthur Police Department is not willing to endorse or recommend the passage of this levy, the chief said. Society views may think this is no big deal because it's just cannabis. However, this is only the beginning of a downhill tumble with regards to illegal drug use. No, sir, no. That's never proven fact. Practically anywhere that cannabis has been legalized. And if the penalties continue to be decreased over time, then what chance does our society have to combat the ever-growing drug problem facing our village and country? Actually, a pretty damn good one, because you cannot solve a problem with the same way of thinking that got you into it in the first place. A response press release sent by Normal Appalachia of Ohio, which has worked to place cannabis decriminalization measures on local ballot in MacArthur and other municipalities across the state, said Heaton is risking his own employment by engaging in electioneering with taxpayer dollars. The group alleges that he violated the Federal Hatch Act as well as Ohio law by using police department letterhead to disseminate outdated information to influence and intimidate voters. Yeah, he's just a sad case of a man. But while Marijuana Moment reached out to the MacArthur Police Department for clarification about why the press release was posted and then deleted, but a representative did not respond by the time of publication. All this does is really show that small-town politics has an ugly, uneducated side. Don Keeney, an activist with Normal Chapter who has been involved in reform efforts for several election cycles, told Marijuana Moment, "This is why we continue to fight even on the local local level, because more importantly, change comes from the ground up. And this is just why I do repeat, try to take part and help in this change if you can, because it really does come from the ground up. It's people in these places that decide, no, I've had enough, and they make the change happen. And, we're trying to just get rid of these old, ignorant, outdated thinkers like Thomas Heaton, who sadly still have positions of power. They just shouldn't anymore. While South Dakota activists launched cannabis legalization signatures drive to get on 2022 ballot. So South Dakota's Secretary of State on Tuesday gave activists approval to launch a signature gathering drive to put cannabis legalization initiative on the state's 2022 ballot. Advocates have been considering a slew of reform measures as the state Supreme Court continues to contemplate a review of the constitutionality of an earlier cannabis legalization initiative that voters approved in 2020, but which was later challenged with a lawsuit funded by the administration of Governor Kristi Noem, which is insane to think that a governor said no. The citizens of South Dakota voted for cannabis legalization, but I know better than all the citizens of the state, so we're going to challenge this. And the fact that the Supreme Court's still even contemplating this is ridiculous to me, but nonetheless, the fact that South Dakota activists can get these signatures going ahead and started is good, but what is the one thing I wanted to highlight down here? However, the November 8th deadline for qualification is quickly approaching, and we have no choice but to launch the signature drive. So good luck, South Dakota activists. I know you can get this done. This is just an insane and unconstitutional situation in South Dakota, but I just believe that the activists are going to get this done because it's the plant's time, as we can see with all the momentum building. While we move over to Kentucky, medical cannabis bill will pass if leadership has courage to allow a vote on a new version, sponsor says. And this just goes to show the sort of mentality that we saw with that police chief in Ohio. The Republican sponsor of a bill to legalize medical cannabis in Kentucky says he has made multiple revisions of the legislation to scale it back and add restrictions to garner more support from colleagues. And he's confident it would pass if legislative leaders have the courage to simply allow a vote. Nemes filed a medical legalization bill that soundly passed the House last year, but later died in the Senate without a vote amid the early part of the coronavirus pandemic. He reintroduced the legislation in January for the 2021 session, but it did not advance this year. Now he's working to build support for a new version in 2022. This is a medical cannabis bill, not recreational cannabis bill. This is what we have the votes for, he said. There's no doubt about it. We have the votes for it in the House and Senate. It passed 63 to 30 in the House when we were told it wouldn't pass last session. We need to have the courage to vote. Yes, and you need the courage for the people of Kentucky to get access to a safe alternative to reduce opioid overdoses. That is why leaders should have the courage to hold this vote, even if it goes against what they thought in the past. While we have this new study published from September 27, 2021 that I wanted to share, survey of patients employing cannabigerol predominant cannabis preparations, perceived medical effects, adverse events, and withdrawal symptoms. Now, cannabigerol is one of these new ingredients, I think you could say, or compounds in cannabis like THC or CBD. Now, personally myself, I don't think I've ever consumed cannabigerol. I probably have if I've consumed cannabis with THC. Maybe there's cannabigerol. Anyways, the fact that this is about cannabigerol, I just wanted to explain that before we get into this, as it's not about THC or CBD. But more importantly, we're just going to go through the conclusions and then take it from there. This is the first patient survey of CBG predominant cannabis use to date. So it seems like just another compound that does have medicinal benefits besides THC and CBD. But the thing is, because cannabis is in the classification or the Schedule 1 classification in the CSA, we've not been able to just fully research this like we should, right? So that's why it again is so important to deschedule cannabis, so that all of this research that has been needed or that should have been done a long time ago can be undertaken. But just to digress, this is the first patient survey of CBG predominant cannabis use to date, and the first to document self-reported efficacy of CBG predominant products, particularly for anxiety, chronic pain, depression, and insomnia. Most respondents reported greater efficacy of CBG predominant cannabis over conventional pharmacotherapy, which I believe would be prescription pills based on opioids, with a benign adverse event profile and negligible withdrawal symptoms. So again, benign adverse event profile, so benign, there's no adverse event profile, so no adverse reactions, and then negligible, not worthy of noting any withdrawal symptoms. The study establishes that humans are employing CBG, which, we know, billions was spent on cannabis in 2020 in the US alone, and suggests that CBD predominant cannabis-based medicine should be studied in randomized controlled trials. Yes, we want to study this, but firstly, we need to deschedule cannabis so that, researchers can have the freedom to do that without feeling they'll get some stigmatized backlash or anything. So it shows there's just so much more to learn about this plant, and we would be light years ahead in medicine if we had gone a different route back in the 70s. But on to this one from Todd Harrison, and this is a tweet within a thread, and again, it's highlighting the Cannabis Town Hall with Brady Cobb and Pete Landrum. These are DC lobbyists on the floor, but I just want to share this from Todd Harrison. The timing isn't an accident, and I talked about the political calculus of the Senate GOP below. There are no accidents in my honest opinion. This is in motion. So this is here if you wanted to reference it, if you haven't already. But so just to highlight where we are, and from what we can anticipate going forward, we are waiting for the Attorney General to respond to Senators Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker, who asked the Attorney General to give a response about their intention to either, yes, remove cannabis from the CSA and start the descheduling process, or no, keep cannabis in the CSA and not start the descheduling process. So what we can anticipate on October 20th is just a response of the DOJ or Attorney General's intention of what they're going to do. But I think that's going to be big because that is just in line with all the momentum and all the changes that we're seeing. And if that response from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, is positive, saying, yes, we do intend to start the descheduling process, that, I think, is, again, the victory the Dems want, to say that, hey, we stood for social equity, we are for social equity, while at the same time allowing SAFE to stay in the NDAA because they get that victory beforehand. Another thing that Brady Cobb recently added on Twitter, I should have pulled this up but didn't, but he said that why this is also a big deal is because October 20th, when the Attorney General is going to give this response, is 10 days or so before November, typically when the Senate takes up the NDAA. So, if the Attorney General responds positively, that can give the Dems their social equity win and, everything that they wanted that they couldn't get the votes for with the Republicans, while allowing them to keep SAFE in the NDAA to advance and allow all of what the cannabis industry had needed for a very long time to proceed. And that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned in today's episode? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or concerns. Also, if there's any new developments that you saw, please do not be afraid to share them so that we can just have a chat, because the more that as a community we can just contribute and try and stay on top of this and find the most accurate information to predict what might end up coming, it's just going to make us better investors in the future, and I think that's beneficial for all of us. So I want to thank you so much again for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great day, everybody.